Finebaum Show. And now, Paul Finebaum.
Pleasant good afternoon. We're back in Alabama, and that could mean only one thing: the beginning of the SEC Media Days. Welcome, and we're here again, starting it off, and it's gotten off to a pretty quick start with the commissioner of the SEC, the new commissioner, Greg Sankey, kicking it off about 2 hours ago. A very eloquent conversation from Greg Sankey. We'll be joined by him a little bit later on. Many more guests as well, as the SEC is off and running. Some interesting comments already. Gus Malzahn speaking first here a few minutes ago on Will Muschamp. But hopefully Kirby Smart is sitting down. John Chavis is sitting down. He called Gus Malzahn calling Will Muschamp the best defensive mind in all of football, not just college football. So a major shot across the bow there on this year's Iron Bowl. Malzahn said, "We're playing at home this year. I like our chances." On satellite camps, chances of a team coming up north coming in and taking a player from Alabama once are slim to none. Gus Malzahn showing some really interesting personality. And on the SEC West, it's the best division in football. It's a man's league. Malzahn speaking. We'll also speak very soon with Derek Mason, the embattled Vanderbilt coach. We'll also talk to one of his top players, Pat Dooley, a little bit later on the situation in Gainesville. And Jim McElwain will join us as well. That's in the second half of the show. We start the show on radio, then we'll switch over to radio and television a little bit later on as we get things going here on the SEC Network. In addition to McElwain, Vernon Hargraves will join us, the All-American defensive back at Florida, Greg McElroy, Cole Kubelik. Your phone calls at 855-242-7285. Hope everyone has had a good break. I appreciate everyone filling in last week when we were gone from the show, but we're back and running, and there may be an occasional interruption, but not too many. We're here, and we'll take you up until the national championship game in just a little bit under 6 months. But the scene pretty quiet so far today. Walked in from the airport, and there were maybe 15 or 20 people downstairs waiting for Gus Malzahn. That will shift dramatically on Wednesday when Nick Saban makes his annual arrival here, and so do half of the Crimson Tide Nation. 855-242-7285. We'll try to sprinkle in calls throughout the 4 hours. Of course, we do have many guests as well, so we'll try to get you on as quickly as possible. Let's start with Lance. It's been a while since I had a chance to visit with Lance. I know he's anxious to hear what Jim McElwain will say in a little while, but Lance, what's on your mind?
Oh, man, good to hear your voice, Bob.
Okay, bud.
I just thought Malzahn was extremely confident in his team and saying they got the best coaching staff of football, like he's putting the nation in the SEC on notice. You know what I mean? But I love Will Muschamp, but let's be honest, Florida's D struggled half the season last year. So he ain't going to be a quick fix. Over time, but how long is he going to stay, Paul? That's the biggest question. But I know you want to talk to Vernon Hargraves, so how does it feel to talk to the best player in the country? And could you ask Coach Mack how Will Greer fits into his offensive system? Because I feel like Coach Mack is one of the best quarterback coaches in the SEC East. I think he's the best. I think he's better than Mark Richt. Mark Richt struggled, but you probably don't want to talk about that stuff. But he had Matthew Stafford for 3 years and Aaron Murray for 4, and he didn't win the SEC championship. So I think he's going to be overrated with quarterbacks. Maybe you could ask him about Will Greer, Paul. It's good to have you back, man. I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much, Lance. It's good to be back. And, yeah, it's really been gone for more than a day or two, so I agree. It's fun to come back. 855-242-7285. Love to get as many of you on as possible here before we start becoming overloaded with guests, and we'll grab you in a minute, but certainly much to do. Going back to Greg Sankey, he was different than we have had in the past. Mike's Live always came to this event for 13 years with a very buttoned-down message. He used his bully pulpit well, and he used it powerfully. Today, it was more about style than substance for Commissioner Greg Sankey. He began by quoting Bob Dylan's "The Times They Are A-Changing," an anthem of the 60s. And he used it as a theme that things are different now. There's a younger commissioner, one that live tweeted throughout his entire speech, which left some people in social networking wondering how that's possible. Well, there is a way. We've done it here as well. And but he was very, very eloquent, too. He talked about the SEC not needing to be like others, and with a direct shot at the NFL by playing in various ports of the world, such as London or Asia or anywhere else. He talked about the young people of this league and what makes them so important, and it was well received by nearly everyone in that room. So we'll talk to Commissioner Sankey a little bit later. I asked him afterwards when we brought him up to the SEC Network stage why he chose that message versus one of the past where we have seen. And hey, Coach, good to see you. He said, I felt like we needed, there was plenty of time for that. I said hello to Derek Mason as he walked by, and we will be joined by him very shortly. And certainly a lot of people in Nashville wondering about Derek Mason, and we'll talk to him about his future coming up shortly. Mike is next up in Houston. Mike, thank you.
Hey, man, long time, first time, and I wanted to chime in. Obviously, I know we talked about Kenny Stabler a lot last week, but you know, I met him when I was a kid in Houston when he was an Oiler, and I was fortunate enough to sit and talk to him for about 30 minutes just about football in general. I was obviously a big Love You Blue guy, Don Phillips guy, and because of him, I went to the University of Alabama. So I just wanted to give a shout-out to his family or anybody that cared about him, thank him for influencing me, for making the best decision I ever made in my life for my education.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I know Kenny passed away the other day, and you know, he had an extraordinary career. I think in many ways Kenny was misunderstood by people, and I got to know him reasonably well at various intervals. Kenny just didn't care what anyone thought, but he would talk to anyone, and he loved conversing with fans. I remember being on a flight with Kenny once to a charity event up in Ohio. And people would come up to him, and he almost seemed apologetic and somewhat surprised that people would do that. One story I do remember, one of the nights we were out together, which weren't that many, but there were occasional times, he told an amazing story. And he said they were playing, the Raiders were playing in New York, and with the Jets. That was quite a rivalry. And he went out with a bunch of guys in Manhattan, and they stayed out, and next thing you know, the sun was coming up, and he didn't want to go back to the hotel because he was afraid he would draw the wrath of John Madden for missing curfew. Not that Madden really cared or noticed. So he literally went from night clubbing to Shea Stadium. He called his roommate, and I cannot remember who it was at the time, but it was a pretty well-known guy. He said, just pack me up, put the gear on the bus, and without a shower, without breakfast, without sleep, he went to the stadium. I said, well, how'd you do? He said, something like, 32 out of 45, 4 touchdowns. They won the game. I mean, it was a classic Kenny Stabler story that you probably didn't hear much of last week. But that's who he was. Joe Namath always, had the reputation of being Broadway Joe. Kenny had the nickname of being the Snake. They were two completely different people, but still an extraordinary career. And certainly a lot of people mourning his death. A quick break, 855-242-7285. Ralph Webb, the Vanderbilt running back, and Coach Derek Mason of the Commodores coming up here shortly. We're live in Hoover, Alabama for the SEC Media Days.
Investing in bonds.
Back live in Hoover, Alabama. SEC Media Days is underway, and we're joined by Vanderbilt's head coach, Derek Mason, and running back Ralph Webb. And Ralph, last year your coach stole media days wearing a bow tie, and everybody was giving him the sartorial award. Looks like you either went to school on him or you're just a cool dresser regardless.
Yeah, I had no idea Coach Mason wore a bow tie last year. This is kind of my own swag.
Yeah, well, he's obviously back to business. Serious suit, tie, although it is gold.
It's gold.
Got a little color there. For
got a little color here.
School color. Well, Ralph, let's talk to you first. I know you've been any Vanderbilt student athletes. It's more than just about playing ball, but you've done a lot of things that are I think our audience would be interested in, particularly going to Australia. You're not going down there to play Australian rules football, I suppose.
No, not a chance.
So what was the purpose of the trip?
My purpose of the trip was to take a class, a biology course. It fulfills a science requirement. A sociology major, but we need a science course in order to graduate. 3 of them. That was my second one. So we did some great things down there. We snorkeled in the Great Barrier Reef.
Really?
Yeah, we went.
By the way, when I took summer school classes, they were in an unair conditioned room because I didn't pass. I didn't go to Australia.
We snorkeled in the Great Barrier Reef. The reef, which probably was my most magnificent moment over there.
Wow.
We also jungle surf, which is aka zip lining. We canoed in the mangrove swamps, and we actually went hunting in the mangrove swamps when the tide was low. So it was actually to go underneath. You can see all the roots. We caught some oysters.
Did you run this by Coach Mason before you did all this?
Nah, Coach Mason, I don't think he knew about that part. He knew about the Great Barrier Reef, but he didn't know about the going hunting part.
Oh, man.
Well, what about it, Coach? I mean, now it may be too late to come down on your star pupil here, but
Right.
what do you make out of all this?
I tell you what, anything that we can do to enhance the student-athlete experience is fantastic. Study abroad is not something new at Vanderbilt, but we take Maymester, and our student-athletes have a chance to, study abroad if the opportunity presents itself. And, Ralph came to me and said, hey, Coach, this is something I want to do. I'm excited about the opportunity. And, of course, our football administration backed it. And so, for him, I didn't know about the zip lining. I didn't know about all the extracurricular activities. But here's what I'll say. I know Ralph well, and I know that he's never going to put himself in harm's way. So everything that he did in fun, and it was probably one of the most enjoyable experiences of his life.
Well, Coach, speaking of getting away, I know it's over now, but did you get away at all and relax?
You know what? I got to the city of Charleston. I had a chance to. A friend of mine has a restaurant, in Charleston, Hall's Chop House, and we had a chance to get by there. And me and my wife spent 2 great days together, and that was fantastic. I've been with my kids throughout the summer, and really in the office. I think after the season. It was definitely about getting back to work, and that's where I've been. I've been in the lab trying to make sure that, it's definitely about getting it right, and so that's what we're doing.
Ralph, what do you make out of Coach taking his wife for a romantic 2-day visit to the beach? I mean, does that make sense to you, or does that just sound like something from a bad movie?
Oh, no, that's great for him and his family. Everyone deserves a little downtime, but now we're getting things back rolling. Camp's coming around in less than a couple weeks, seems like, and so we're going to get the ball rolling.
Coach, on that front, a lot of people that listen and see us every day, they think there's a game tomorrow, but they're saying,
right.
Media Days is here. But there really isn't. There's still a little more time, but in your mind, is this when the switch turns?
Well, the switch has already turned. That calendar now is just starting to count down, and that's really what happens. SEC Media Day for me now means that we're on the official clock, and so the countdown has begun. And with that, it's definitely about trying to tie up loose ends, understanding that this thing is coming to an end and the season is upon us. So right now it's just about the finishing touches that you tried to create. Or tried to finish with your football team, because the culture has to be shaped by now, because there's no turning back.
Ralph, Coach and I have had some friendly conversations recently, and he's working hard to convince all of us that this is going to be a different year in Nashville. You're part of this club. You're a big part of it. What do you see that would convince you as a player, but everyone else watching or listening, that Vanderbilt's about to take off?
I think we're a much more competitive team than we were last year. Coach Dallas is making sure that we do a competitive drill after every workout, no matter what it is, from the most pull-ups to holding weight for as long as we can hold it. I think we're just it's a much more competitive environment. We must first compete with ourselves before we compete with others. So I think that we're going to take that and translate it into September 3rd.
How did last year impact you, and how does it also, or did it, motivate you in the off season?
Oh yeah, last year there's pros and cons. So we want to take the cons and work on them to make them be the best you can be. And we take the pros and build off it. So there's always ups and downs. We had a very rough season. A very young team, played the most freshmen in the nation, 31. And I think we're going to take that year of experience and implement it in fall camp and make sure we have a much better season this year.
Coach, Ralph turned me around. I like what he's saying.
Well, I mean, he gets it. I think the thing with Ralph is that Ralph's one of the first guys in the building, one of the last guys to leave. And I think that's important when you have young guys, as well as our veteran group, that understand that, 3-9 is really unacceptable for us. And that's not the place that we want to be, but it's really a comma and not a period. So we've moved on from what that is, and now we've had to be about the work and that it takes to be relevant in this conference. And as you know, every week's a dogfight. So whether you're playing a non-conference schedule or a conference schedule, you got to bring your A game. And for us, we call that RTI, relentless, tough, and intelligent. That's the competitive part of what we have to do. We got to play 4 quarters, 60 minutes every play. We got to be tough about what that looks like, and really start to impose our will on teams. And we got to be better in the intelligence category of making sure that we cut down on turnovers and penalties, and that we maximize our opportunities in situational football, red zone, third down. And if you can do those things, if you can just do those things alone, and those things are measurable when you look at film, you can be a better football team.
I was in Knoxville recently, and the fans there are obviously looking ahead, but they did come away with respect for Vanderbilt. And I wonder, that game was in doubt. Is there losses are losses, but what did you take from that loss, Ralph, and how does it encourage you a little bit that this team is close?
I took from it that our team has heart. Until the game is over, it's over, but we're going to play until the last whistle, and that's what I love about our team. We're willing to compete, willing to sacrifice for each other, and I know that we have heart, and we're going to use that heart and hard work that we put in this offseason to have a great season this year.
What is this experience like for you? And I know it's probably not likely that you see your contemporaries around here, but they're all rolling around. The coaches know each other pretty well. The players, how well do you know the other players in this league?
I know some of them. I have a best friend, Chris Thompson, who plays for Florida, plays for receiver. We went to high school together, played on the same high school team.
So, is it being here, is it overwhelming, or is it just a lot of people and a lot of questions?
It's a very exciting environment. This is very new to me. It's my first SEC Media Day. I've never been here. I'm just excited, and I'm honored that the coaches and Vanderbilt chose me to represent this team.
How long did you work on this outfit?
It didn't take very long, about 30 minutes or so.
Now, I sincerely, Coach, you don't look like the kind of guy that's thinking 4 days in advance what I'm wearing. I mean, do you just walk into the closet early in the morning and just throw something on, or do you think it through?
You know what? I guess when you're out, shopping, and I don't do it much, but when you are out, if something catches your eye, you get it then. You don't wait until 4 days. And
you say, I'm wearing it.
Yeah, I saw the jacket, and I said to myself, about 4 or 5 months ago that's the jacket I want. And, I picked the jacket, and then we moved from there. But I'd be remiss, since we're talking, and Mr. Finebaum, I'd be remiss in not talking about Andy Lovewood. I think Andy's been one of the key hires, to this football team and to this staff. Ralph mentioned James Dobson in terms of our strength and conditioning coach, and he's really reshaped the culture. But when you talk about Andy Lovewood, he's given our offense a different identity. He understands, when you look at his track record, he understands how to utilize personnel and make sure that the scheme matches the personnel, which was somewhat of a struggle for us a year ago. He's been able to put guys in position to make plays, to be successful, and these guys' confidence is high. It's growing, and that's what we need. When you're a young football team, you got to grow. And he's been able to grow this group leaps and bounds, and I'm looking forward to our first game of the season to see how much we've grown.
I asked you this, I believe it was in Destin, and you always learn. There's a big difference between that first year and the second year. Personnel-wise, and I realize you've made some adjustments.
Right.
But what else, Coach Mason, did you take away, and do you feel better about right now?
I do feel better about right now because I'm not assuming I'm not making statements about what our football team is going to do. And you know, I sort of made an assumption that our football team was going to be good just because we're an SEC team, and you can't make that assumption. You never know what you have until you start playing games. So with our football team, I haven't talked to our team about anything but the work. That's all we talk about is the work. Okay, and you can't shortcut that process. So our football team, I'm not talking about, you know, what we are or what we're going to do. We're talking about what we have to do today, and that's win the day. So as long as we can dominate days and put days on top of days, that gives us a chance to be competitive, and that competitive spirit is going to show itself because our schemes are definitely better. But you got to be able to compete in this conference for 60 minutes, 4 quarters, every play in order to have a chance to be relevant.
Well, we're only in the first quarter of the SEC Media Days, but Ralph Webb wins best dressed by far. I mean, with all due respect to your new sport Coach.
Yeah.
I'm going with the player.
Oh, you should. You should. You swagged out. I'll take it. I'll take it.
Thanks so much, guys. Congratulations, Ralph, Coach. We'll see you soon. We'll take a short break. We're back live at SEC Media Days.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jeff.
We're live in Alabama. Sweet home, Alabama. SEC Media Days here in Hoover. For those who wonder, I got in this debate recently with a colleague. I kept saying I was flying to Birmingham. He said, "No, I'm going to Hoover." I said, "No, you're going to Birmingham." A lot of people don't realize that Hoover is a separate city, but it's essentially in Birmingham. So there's a lot of confusion over the exact location where this is, but you do have to fly into Birmingham, and 20 minutes later, you're in Hoover. As a matter of fact, my first apartment in town, John is less than a mile from where we sit right now. Probably a monument up. I'm not sure I've paid my final month's rent to that apartment. 855-242-7285. Looking forward to speaking to all of our callers. And our next caller, I was actually on my way down to say hello to him about an hour ago, and some reporter grabbed me, and next thing you know, I was on the air. But Johnny, are you still around?
I'm still here. No, we left, and I'm going to give a big shout-out to John. He come down and saved me and took care of me.
Okay. Well, I had several people say you were down there, and I literally was walking. I'd done something with David Pollock on Sports Center. I went back to check something and was going to see you, and 2 people grabbed me, and I never got away. But hopefully you'll be back.
You know, the good news is Johnny says he works 5 minutes down the road,
okay.
and we're here all week.
Well, Johnny, we will arrange. We'll arrange a more than a meet. I mean, we'll get you up here to our little operation and talk to you.
Man, we appreciate that, Paul. I mean, John, he's a super nice guy. I really enjoyed meeting him.
Let's not get carried away here, Johnny.
Yeah, I'm trying to build some brownie points, Paul.
You're doing okay.
But, first of all, I hope you had a good vacation. I know you deserved it and needed it.
Yeah, no, it was fun. It was nice to get away for a couple of days, and I really. This morning I got up, I don't know, about 4:45, and said, "Oh my goodness, it's here! Here we go again." But I was quick to the airport here very quickly, and once I got here, I got over my angst of having to work again.
I hear you, brother. Hey, let's talk a little bit of SEC a little bit. I got to thinking I was going to go another route, but I sort of like you. You think about the standard the SEC is set. Now, you're coming down and coaching in Florida, and he took this talent, and he learned what the SEC is all about, and he carried it to Ohio State. Look what he done. He won a national championship. Look at Jim Harbaugh. I mean, he come down here with these satellite camps, And he knows what it's going to take. You know, the SEC has made the standard, Paul, and everybody is working so hard to be like the SEC. Whether they like it or not, that is a fact. Is that correct?
Johnny, I think everything you said is correct about the SEC. I don't know in the end what it's going to mean, because I think this league is going to experience a lot of criticism, and already has. Now, I looked at the USA Today this morning, and there's already an article about the SEC no longer gets the benefit of the doubt, and it's a new day. But we knew that. Actually, I just finished writing a piece for ESPN magazine on that subject that will be in the football issue, and it's going to be a tough. It's going to be a tough year for the SEC if it doesn't get there again. And we all know how tough it is. We live it. We swim in it every day. But the perception of the league has changed a little bit.
Oh, man. Hey, I tell you, I see the East coming back, Paul. I don't think we need to lay back. Tennessee, I think they're starting to set the standard. Florida's got a great coach coming.
Well, let me say this, Johnny. I was in Knoxville not last week, but the week before, doing a piece that aired this Saturday morning on SportsCenter, and had the occasion to run into Joshua Dobbs. I saw some other players down there, and they're very upbeat. There's no question that program is coming back, but I'm not sure it is where they think it is yet. But it's definitely on the comeback trail. It's one of the hot programs in the SEC. Thank you very much, Johnny. We will see you before the week's over. Just talk to John, and I'm sure John will probably have a suite for you here at this hotel.
Yes,
thank you very much.
Can I give a shout out to Phyllis and I-Man, Matt, and Rich. I appreciate them reaching out and getting in contact with me. There's some great people, Paul. I love this Finebaum family.
Well, Johnny, I'm glad you're part of it, because those people you mentioned have been a part of it for a long time, and it's a unique group of people, and you know how we feel. Thank you. See you this week.
All right, buddy. Appreciate it, Paul.
Got it, bud. We're live in Alabama. We'll take a short break. Gus Malzahn among the guests, Jim McElwain, many more as we continue.
When our water heater...
We're live in Alabama. We spoke with Coach Mason, many other coaches making the rounds. Just saw Jeremy Johnson from Auburn. Not that he's a coach, but his coach, Gus Malzahn, was not far behind. Obviously, Jim McElwain will be here later, and we will have him on the program, as well as Vernon Hargraves. I mentioned Commissioner Sankey's first address to the media. We'll talk more about that later with him. He will join us toward the end of the program. Right now, we'll get some more reaction from you, 855-242-7285. I mentioned the Dan Wilkin article today in USA Today, and this is becoming already the story of the offseason, and I don't think it's going to change anytime soon. But essentially, Wilkin in USA Today, and he alluded to this as well when we were with him in Destin, that the SEC doesn't get the benefit of the doubt anymore. Everyone respects the SEC. Everyone praises what has been accomplished, but under the heading, why SEC teams have more at stake this year than usual, it doesn't matter to the national media that the SEC has won 7 of the last 9. And one of the reasons why there is so much blowback, and I mentioned being on with Colin Cowherd today as well, is the fact that the SEC used this event for that stretch to boast and brag and in your face to everyone else. And now it's come back a little bit to haunt the league, and there are some consequences, and you can throw any amount of statistics at the critics that you want. You can say that in the first college football playoff late last October, you had 4 of the top 6 in the SEC, but it just doesn't really impact very much. And one person that's joining us now is Gus Malzahn, and we were talking about the league. And Coach, thank you very much for being with us. You've been part of 2 national championship games in recent years, and the league, I wouldn't say it's coming under attack, but when the SEC doesn't win, it becomes a big deal.
Well, first of all, the SEC West, I've said this before, it's a man's league. It's survival of the fittest now that the Mississippi schools are playing good football. Texas A&M's unbelievably talented. There's no weeks off, and so you've got to survive the West. And when you survive the West, the team that does that, then he's got to play a very good team out of the East, and then you get into the playoffs. So it's just going to be a matter of time. We just got to get used to the format. I still think the best football is played in the SEC.
Yeah, and I think everyone felt last year you were a college football playoff team if you had a different schedule. And I'm not making excuses. I know you don't, but that was a brutal schedule.
It was a brutal schedule. It was one of the toughest in the country, and going in, you know that, and you just got to overcome it. We didn't overcome it. We had trouble putting pressure on the quarterback the second half season. That kind of led to some ups and downs, but we didn't finish like we would, but it's a new year, and really looking forward this year.
You mentioned when you dealt with your first press conference today, you talked a lot about Will Muschamp, and I want to stay on that for a moment because I don't remember other than maybe when you showed up at Auburn as a coordinator making as much impact before you ever coached a game.
Yeah, of course, like I said, I believe he's the best defensive mind in all of football. He has that it factor. You can just, his presence around coaches, they're better. The players believe in him. It's a really good thing, especially for the future defensively.
In terms of what he brings, we don't know. We haven't seen a game yet, but clearly he impacted the program in recruiting. He's impacted it in all facets. But I suspect you knew that going in.
Yeah, we did. We had an outstanding defensive class this past class, and I think if we could fast forward a year or two, you're going to see him recruit specifically to what he wants this defense to look like, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
Coach, as an offensive coach, having him there, what does that mean to you?
Well, it gives me great security. I sleep very good at night. And then the fact that, he's been a head coach in this league, and I've already bounced things off of him, and it's really a great thing. He's a true professional and just did an outstanding job since he's been there, and we complement each other very well.
We just have a couple of moments. There is really not a very long off season, but you're a guy who I know likes to spend time with your family, with your children. What have you done to at least forget the rat race?
I got away for 4 or 5 days and tried to turn the cell phone off for about 6 hours, but hey, it was good for me, and I'm ready to get this thing going. I'm real excited and ready to get on that practice field. That's what I enjoy most.
We just saw your quarterback walking around. I'm no judge of athleticism, but I saw a lot in him. Talk about Jeremy.
Yeah, I'm very excited for Jeremy. He's really paid his dues. He could have played for a lot of teams around the country. He's been in a backup role. For 2 years, the way he's handled himself has really created a lot of respect from our coaching staff and his teammates. And I think, this is his team. This is time, and really excited to see what he does with our offense and our team.
Finally, you showed up here 3 years ago. We knew you pretty well, but you go to the national championship game. You're in it until the end last year. What have you learned from the first 2 years as a head coach at Auburn?
Yeah, well, I think anytime you do something for the first time, SEC head coach, it's a different ball game, and you learn from the different things. The first year we had one of the biggest turnarounds in the history of college football. Came up a little short. Last year, high expectations, got off to a good start. We didn't finish. So we've experienced a lot of different things, and those not only will help me, but help the rest of our staff and the rest of our coaches.
Coach, I see people waiting to grab you. I'll let you go, but thank you for coming by. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good to talk to Gus Malzahn, the head coach at Auburn University. Nice enough to drop by. Seemed very relaxed and upbeat about the upcoming college football season. We'll continue with more calls in a moment. 855-242-7285. But you heard it from Malzahn there. He's feeling better. He said he sleeps better at night. Why? Because of Will Muschamp. Rarely have I seen a coordinator impact a program as much as Muschamp before the first game. certainly we don't know what will come, but we know what has already occurred. Now, if you think about coordinators impacting, certainly we saw it with Malzahn, the impact he had on Gene Chiswick's class a couple of years ago, others as well. But Kiffin made an impact last year from a buzz factor, but no one was really sure what would happen until the first game, and then you saw it. You saw the organization, you saw coolness that he dealt with. But this is a little bit different. I mean, this is an experienced coordinator, number one. I mean, Gus Malzahn said it, but Will Muschamp, don't forget, was the coordinator at Auburn under Tommy Tuberville when they had a perfect season. He then left to replace, ironically, Gene Chiswick at the University of Texas. They had another perfect season, winning the national championship. This is a coach that was part of Nick Saban's staff as the coordinator in Baton Rouge when LSU won the 2003 national championship. So I mean, he has a great resume. There's some debate on how to best classify his tenure at the University of Florida. I happen to think it was a failure, and it was a failure because so much was expected, and he just didn't deliver. And it was also a failure because you saw the potential in the 2012 season when Florida lost only one game, and in the current world of the college football playoff would have played in the national championship playoff. And then they lost to Louisville in that Sugar Bowl, and really the program was never the same since. And Muschamp seemed confused and awkward, and just made one bad decision offensively after another. But as a coordinator, it looks like he has a new lease on life, and I think Auburn's going to be the pick here. I mean, again, Alabama is still Alabama, to just use a tired cliche. But I suspect Thursday afternoon the media is going to go with Auburn. They just seem to have more buzz than Alabama. I think it has become more and more fashionable to take shots at Alabama, to find fault, to look at Alabama's schedule, and there's no way you can look at it honestly and objectively and not see losses. I don't know how. And I'm not talking about the zealot from the parking lot. I'm talking about the reasonably objective football observer to look at the games on Alabama's schedule: at Georgia, at Texas A&M, at Auburn, and not find a loss. Arkansas, Ole Miss, at home. They're also at Mississippi State. Tennessee at home, Wisconsin to begin the season. It looks too demanding. Alabama has survived the gauntlet before, but Alabama has not survived a schedule like this since Nick Saban arrived. The one schedule I would compare to this was 2010, when Alabama started the season ranked number one in the country. That was the season where everyone seemingly had a bye game, or not everyone, but most of the key games. In South Carolina with a bye game upset Alabama in Columbia, and it just kept happening. So that's what the experts are pontificating about in relation to Alabama's schedule. And I think, again, it doesn't really matter what I think or anyone thinks, nor does it matter what the media thinks, considering that Saban will undoubtedly use the same line he's used almost every year, that the media never gets it right. Last year they got it right. They had Alabama winning the SEC, and Alabama won the SEC, as difficult as it was. Anyway, 855-242-7285. Jim McElwain in the second half of the show. Also, Commissioner Sankey. We will switch over to television as well as radio when the press conferences stop. That's what's going on right now on the SEC network. We'll join up there later. We'll take a break. We're live in Alabama for the SEC Media Days.
Are you looking
ESPN Radio?
for the action on the court, the diamond, or the gridiron?
Comes alive.
The NBA.
The Golden State Warriors, NBA champions.
Major League Baseball.
San Francisco Giants are the champions of the baseball world.
The new college football playoff.
College football playoff national champion, the Ohio State Buckeyes.
Your home for the best in sports play-by-play.
ESPN Radio.
And now, for Geico's edition of Stuff Found in Your Car, we go inside your side door pocket.
Hello, yes, the crumpled receipt with gum in it. From your anniversary dinner, you sprang for expensive wine, your server was Beth. That dinner was a couple $100. Money you could get back if you switched to Geico and saved hundreds of dollars on your car insurance. I bet you'd save that receipt, frame it even. But really, where did I go wrong? Was it the corkage fee?
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance. Visit geico.com today.